Hi everybody, welcome to Sea Life Sydney Aquarium. My name is Emily and I am one of the keepers here. I've been a keeper for about 6 years. I've worked with all different kinds of animals. And what you're seeing here today is the tank that I actually look after. So I'm lucky enough to get to spend heaps of time with all these beautiful animals in here. So this tank is called Shark Valley, and this is one of our temperate oceanariums. So what that means is we keep it quite cool, so it's not tropical. We're kind of basing it on what Sydney water temperature would be. So we actually let it fluctuate up and down as the season changes. So in winter it might get down to about 15 degrees, and then in summer it gets almost up to 25 degrees, so quite warm. All the inhabitants that are in here can be found in Sydney. So if you went for a swim or a dive just off the heads or off the beaches or something like that, you'd be able to see all the different species we have in here. So we've got little things right down from tiny little goatfish like these guys here. They're super, super cool. They're like a little bottom dweller. They eat lots of different little critters like little crabs and crustaceans and things. They use those barbels that he's flicking around at the moment to find food. And then right up to our big grey nurse sharks, which are the big sharks you see swimming behind me. So we actually have 5 of these guys. So we've got 2 females and 3 males. And they actually are an endangered species. So we're doing our best to look after them both in human care and in the wild. This one you're looking at now is actually Striker. So they all have names, they all have individual personalities. We all know them by their individual kind of temperaments, and they feed differently and what they like and they dislike. Some of the other little critters we have in here, so we've got a whole different bunch of species of fish. So we've got things like the little old wife, which is one of my favourite fish. So these little guys here. So these guys are super cool. Their name actually comes from quite a old school meaning. So when you actually bring them out of the water, they actually grind their teeth and it makes quite a grunting noise. So fishermen actually called them old wives because it was reminiscent of their wives grumbling about them being out on the water all day. So that's where they get that name from. It's obviously not very PC, but they have, they've been called that for a very, very long time. They're super cool. The 2 long dorsal fins you can see on his back, they've actually got venom in those spines. So if you were to get struck by one of them, it would hurt quite a lot. It probably wouldn't do much else to you. It wouldn't kill you or anything, but it does pack a punch. The silverfish you can see swimming behind him, so there's 2 different species there actually. So we've got brim, which are the guys with the black edge on their tail. And then we've got the tarwine, which are the slightly more golden coloured ones. They've got a really round face. So they're a really, really common fish to find in Sydney, as well as the big snapper you can see swimming behind them at the moment. So lots of different species of fish. We also have heaps of different species of shark in this tank. So you've just seen our big grey nurse sharks, which are about 3 to 3.2 metres in length. And then we go right down to our little Port Jackson sharks. So hopefully one swims by while we're chatting. But these guys are really cool. So they're actually endemic to Australia, which means that they're only found in Australian waters. And they're a bit of a weird type of shark. They actually don't really look like a shark. They don't have big pointy teeth. They're not really big. They're actually only about 1.2 metres in length. And they actually have crushing plates. So they have a plate on the bottom and a plate on the top, and they've got tiny little ridges all along them. And they actually use that to crush up their prey. So they'll eat things like mussels or crabs, things that they need to get through that hard shell. So they're super cool. They actually sit on the bottom most of the day. They're pretty lazy. So if you come and visit us here at Sydney, look straight up, look at the top of the tunnel, because you'll probably see them sitting above you. We also have a couple of different species of ray in this tank. So we've got little tiny stingerees, which are probably 30 centimetres in diameter. They're quite little. And then right up to Big Mouth, who is our big smooth ray, and she's about 400 kilos. So she's about the size of a queen-size bed. She's also quite old. She's one of the oldest smooth rays known in human care. So she's about 50 years of age, which is pretty good. She's a bit of a grandma, but she's doing really well. So lots of different species of ray. So up here we actually have one of our species of wobbegongs. We actually have 3 species in this tank. So these guys are the spotted wobbegong. They're a little bit paler in colour, and this is probably an average size for them. We've also got ornate wobbegongs, she's very little. She's only about less than 1 metre in length. And then Tassels, who's our Gulf Wobbegong, and he is about 3 metres. So he's very, very large. So these guys are benthic sharks, which means they sit on the bottom. So they basically, this is what they do all day. They're an ambush predator. So they wait, they'll sit on the substrate or under a rock or something and actually wait for their prey to swim past and actually grab them as they're doing that, which is how you're seeing this, like these little barbells around his mouth. This is where they get their name from. So Wobbegong actually means shaggy beard in the native Australian Indigenous language. Around his mouth, you will also be able to see there's little bits of food scattered around. So sometimes when you come visit us here, you will see that there's kind of bits and pieces of food, bits of fish or prawns or something like that on the bottom. It's usually because we've just done a feed. So there will be some of the food that gets to the bottom for animals to scavenge on overnight, so they don't always eat it straight away. But you can see this guy's just sitting on top of the food, he's not eating it. So that's because it's not swimming past. When we feed them, we actually feed them on a stick and we'll wiggle it and kind of mimic the behaviour of a live fish. So that's why he's just chilling there. These guys just hang out like this most of the day. So these guys here are our Mulloway or jewfish. So they're a big sporting fish. A lot of people will go out and try and catch them for sport. And this is because they're very, very, very powerful. They're very strong. They're really strong swimmers. As you can see, they hang out in a school like this. This is where these guys kind of chill most of the day. They actually get their name from something that's inside their body. So it's actually called an otolith, which is basically their ear bone. So we have bones in our ears, lots of different tiny ones. These guys have one big one and actually looks really bright and shiny and white. It kind of looks like a jewel. So these guys actually get their name from jewelfish, but we being Australians, we always shorten everything. So that's jewfish. That's where they get their name from. And they're very, very cool. You can kind of see the inside of their mouth is quite yellow. We're not really sure what the reason for this is, but they all have it. So they're very, very interesting. They've got really large eyes. They're quite a predatory fish, so they'll chase after smaller fish and small sharks and things like that. That's their prey. But they do hunt in schools, so this is how they tend to spend most of their time.